In this episode of Behind the Brand, we're sitting down with our very special friend, Diane Hageman. A powerhouse in every sense of the word, Diane built a career on challenging norms, creating opportunity, and paving the way for female leaders long before it was trendy to talk about women in leadership. After decades of professional success, Diane took a bold leap into what she calls her Act Two, leaving behind the familiar to focus on doing good through a fellowship that ultimately led her to the YMCA, where she closed out her career making an impact on her community every single day. Diane's story is about doing things differently and doing them with purpose. Welcome to Behind the Brand, the podcast for small business owners, solopreneurs, and aspiring entrepreneurs who are ready to start strong, stand out, and stay bold. I'm Taylor.
I'm Kelly.
And I'm Isabella, and we're part of the powerhouse team of marketers at Moxie Creative.
We're taking you behind the scenes to explore what it takes to build and grow a memorable brand.
Ready to get behind the brand? Let's dive in. Hello, Moxieverse. Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Brand. Taylor here, and I'm joined by the fabulous Miss Kelly Kane.
Hello.
And we have a wonderful guest today, Diane Hageman. Diane, how are you?
Good. Happy to be here.
Oh.
Thanks for inviting me in.
Yeah, thanks for accepting Kelly's last-minute invitation.
I
We
wasn't going to
appreciate
mention
it.
that. You guys
Well,
are friends.
yeah,
We've talked about her on the list
Yes,
before.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. And it just happened to work out, and we're so thrilled that you're here. Kelly, you and Diane know each other through your involvement with the YMCA Promenade. That's really how you guys got to...
We were connected a little bit in the past.
Yeah, but how you got closer and
Yes.
have, really formed a friendship, I think.
She was the angel that dropped in.
Well, she gave me a compliment on something I did.
Yeah.
So, of course, I immediately pitched her.
Yeah.
And she said, great, but I don't have a budget, so how about volunteer?
Yeah.
And then I said yes.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. And
But we got
here we
the
are.
2 for 1. We got the decor and the marketing.
Yes.
I just kept telling everybody at the Y that this is an awesome situation.
Yes.
And here it is 5 years later. I can't, you guys have done just amazing things with that event.
Yeah,
Very
and we
proud of it.
just had
We're talking about Promenade.
Yes,
Promenade,
yes,
yep,
Promenade.
yep.
Yep. And we just had Jenna Kingsley, who
Yep.
we'll get into it. Your career and where life has taken you, but she is
She took
your
place.
replacement for the Y. So
Knocking
Diane
it out of
used
the
to have
park, I
Jenna's
believe.
job.
Yep.
Yes, yeah,
Yep.
wonderful. Well, Diane. One of the reasons we wanted to have you as a guest on this podcast, as like Kelly said before the cameras were on, this isn't just a marketing podcast. It's also a business podcast. We like to talk with leaders and really just to hear the different stories of people in central Minnesota. And you, I think, have a very special story and a really awesome career path. When I think of you, I think of your leadership and kind of the path that you paved for women in central Minnesota. I don't know if you would say that about yourself, but that is really how I feel. I think
From the mouth of babes.
Yeah, there we are, right? We didn't know what we were doing. But,
No.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Where did the career for Diane Hageman start?
It actually started at St. Cloud Hospital. I was an intern before my senior year of college at St. Cloud State and went through that really great mass comm program there. And then they actually hired me before I graduated. A position opened up, about 1 quarter left. Yes, I started a full-time job, completed a last quarter of school, and got married in a 3-month period.
Hey, tell us the year, just for fun.
1984, so you can do the
Woohoo.
math.
That
there.
was a
People.
that was a great year. I love 84.
Yeah. And what was very cool about that is that period of time for healthcare, it was moving from community relations and small hospitals to bigger systems, and marketing wasn't such a dirty word, frankly, because you just got all the referrals and stuff. John Frobenius was the CEO, came in about a year after I started, and I just watched because it was fascinating. People at St. Cloud Hospital, like, we're a community hospital. This is not a regional medical center. What are you talking about? Well, ladies, here we
No,
are
it
40
is.
years
Yeah.
later. Look at the system that this has become.
Yeah.
And so to be on the ground floor of marketing the Heart Center, I was the first person to market the
Wow.
Heart Center, and my dad was a recipient for 25 years of being in care there. Family Birthing Center got rebranded in that process, cancer care, just lots of stuff. And I was very, very fortunate. And when you say that, I worked 40 years plus in full time, and I feel extraordinarily blessed with the people I've been able to work with, the companies I've been able to work with. It started at Centricare. But I also did some senior care. I went over and did St. Ben Center for the last half of my 15 years there and got to watch this amazing leader, Sister Rita Budig, who was a pioneer in senior care, had the first memory care houses in the state.
Wow.
Early assisted living. Oh, yeah. over down by St. Ben's. I learned story pitching because she was doing all this stuff that no one else was doing. You know, and actually the women had the highest average age in Stearns County in the 90s. We had national media knocking on the door like, what is going on in central Minnesota that you have women living to be 82.5 or whatever it was, you know. So New York Times, KSTP, like we had people in the door.
And you were doing all the
I
media
was
relations?
doing that, yep. But I think I learned that I had that gift to pitch stories, and the PR side of it is still my favorite thing. I've done marketing, done fundraising, but I just kind of had that knack to recognize a good story and could position it.
So when did you leave kind of the hospital?
1999.
Okay.
Yep, Centricare by then was 2 years old, and actually took a 1-year thing and went and helped work with the sisters out in St. Joe for a year.
Okay.
You know, and rebranded them, you know, but they're pretty quiet ladies and pretty
So why did
humble.
you leave the hospital? Just time to
You know,
move
I
on,
was
or-
ready to do something else,
Okay.
and at that point I was full time at St. Ben's, and it was either what's going on at the hospital. There had been some interesting things to watch in terms of board involvement and things, and I wasn't
Well, if
comfortable.
you're there for 15 years, there's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
be
yeah,
changes,
and that's the
right?
other thing. So, and Kelly, I don't know, because you've had your company here for so long, but what I learned about myself is every 5 to 7 years, I get itchy. So after 5 years full-time at the hospital, I did part-time St. Ben's, part-time hospital. After 5 years of that, did 5 years full-time when the senior housing needed it. So 15
the-
years total,
Yeah.
I was itchy. So did a year. That was just kind of a one-off. But then I went and did freelance. My children were 10 and 14 at the time, and I say we had awesome daycare, and I know you two have lived this, but no one else can raise teenagers but their parents. And they were 10 and 14. And so
That's interesting. You
Yeah.
chose to kind of be more home at that time. I've
I
heard
did.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. And just to have the flexibility. And so I did that in the early 2000s for about 7 years. And that's when I really got involved in the community. I was on the Y board, the chamber board.
United Way. Board.
United Way was later, but yeah,
yeah.
so that was, I was joke. I clean. I don't do cooking. I don't do crafts. Community service is kind of my hobby.
Yeah.
And has been because, yeah, you don't want me doing those
I
other
think
things.
that's how I first met you too. Was you sent me a note thanking me for something I did for United Way.
Yep.
You remember
Oh,
that?
the
Yeah.
50th anniversary. I
Yeah.
loved it. I was
Yeah.
on
That's
the
a great
board.
campaign.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. It was
That was
amazing.
like
Yep. I was
2017?
getting a sense of Kelly and all her wonderfulness over there and talents.
right.
So anyway, yeah, I did that for about 7 years. I am also a faithful person, and I just think, you know, God's directed a lot of things happen for a reason, and I've been very fortunate. I mean, God helps those who help themselves. But 2007, my friend's out at St. Ben's, the college, and she's like, Diane, she's in marketing out there. She's a web director. And she's like, you know, they're going to add this media relations position for St. Ben's specifically because
Okay.
St. John's always gets so much
Yeah.
press and
Yeah.
the women get overlooked. I'm like, well, isn't this a beautiful thing?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, pitching stories about young women and the college, and I had never worked in higher ed
Yeah.
or education, so was fortunate and was hired and then worked there from 07 to 15.
What was that experience like, kind of re-entering the workforce?
At first, well, I loved it.
Yeah.
You know, because I was back full time around. I'm very extroverted around a lot of people. But let me tell you, it was like, okay, what's the phone system here? What's the email system here? Certainly wasn't texting or social. Social media started to just come in with that.
Okay.
So be on a college campus to watch that.
Sure.
And see what we all were doing with what's LinkedIn versus Facebook. Oh, and then there's this Twitter thing over here, and Snapchat wasn't. And then you watch college students trying to navigate it. And, you know, Twitter at 1 a.m. with drunk students, it's not a good thing. It's not a good, you know, so I'd get these
Yeah,
calls.
I can recall.
Yeah,
Twitter
yeah,
was not
I know.
heavy
It's
my
like,
college years.
guys, and it was probably more guys, but the women did
Yeah,
some things too.
yeah.
But don't be doing this stuff because when you want to run for public office when you're 35 or 40,
That's
this
what I
stuff
say.
is
I'll
going to
never
come
be president.
come back. It's going to come back to haunt you. So yeah, anyway, so it was really invigorating. We did get a lot of national placements. I had a president. I was kind of her publicist is kind of how it ended up being. 'Cause
Sure.
she really was very savvy to media stuff. She came from Philadelphia. She pushed it hard.
Okay.
But my boss, my direct boss, just kind of let me go and do what I needed to do for her. And It was really fun. I mean, there one year, man, we had a lot of placements, a lot of TV stuff. Care 11, KSTP, Trayless Kitchens. First water bottle went water. Didn't have plastic bottles on
Sure,
campus.
sure.
Had those everywhere now where you
Yeah.
can fill your water. St. Ben's was front of that. Super fun to work on all that. I know, I was
Yeah.
really lucky.
Yeah, entered into the workforce in two different time periods, but also in industries that were on the verge of really big things happening, especially for our community.
Big organizations in our community.
Right, yeah.
Yep,
CentraCare, St. Ben, St. John's, those are staples in central Minnesota. They're
and
things that you think
education and
about.
healthcare to learn what I was
Yeah.
able to learn.
Yeah, two different.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yep.
what happened in 2015 then?
So again, family calls, and my parents, particularly my dad, who was still living at the time, was declining. He had had a fall, and they were out in Cold Spring. I was in St. Cloud, and it just became evident that I needed to figure out a way to be a little more present for them. I'm the only child in the state of Minnesota, and so just the running back and forth and the perfectionistic strength, and I think a lot of ladies know this, perfectionistic streak. You don't feel good if you can't be fully present to what
Yeah.
you're doing, and it just became too much.
Yeah.
And my husband had a good job. The kids were gone. I will say the other thing too that happened, which I'm so fortunate. My son, who's now 34, 5, was a sophomore in high school when I started at St. Ben's. So one of the gifts that came out of that is we got free tuition.
Yes.
We just had to pay room and board, which
Sure.
that is.
Yeah,
I
it's a lot.
remind him regularly, yes, you are welcome
Yeah.
for that $120,000
Yeah,
gift.
I went to a
back
private
in the day.
university,
Yeah,
and-
you know,
yeah.
it's not. You're
Nope,
the same age.
I'll be paying for that till
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
80.
Where did Nikki go to school? She
Went to
that?
Winona State.
Oh,
Yep,
okay.
a good teacher's college, and she
Mm-hmm.
is a teacher here in town. So, yep, all the state system schools were founded as teachers' colleges. She got a great education
Yeah.
there. But it was a little smaller than St. Cloud or Mankato. It was a great fit for her.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, so, Nikki, my daughter, who's now the mom of 3. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so then that led to,
So what did you do in 2015 then? You just
I
took care of
was
your
free. I
parents?
had started kind of inquiring and, loved healthcare. And so I just kind of was talking to my friends that were the directors there at, back at CentraCare and just said, hey, if you ever need any help. And so I then had resigned. And then within a month, again, I think
You were
my
supposed
faith,
to take a break, and then
well,
you
my
didn't.
faith also, but things kind of connected. So I ended up being back with CentraCare freelance for 4 years.
Okay.
And I had
Oh,
monthly
I didn't know
stipend.
that.
I did do that. I helped with their weight management. I was kind of like their account rep. And then I did,
Well, that was
other
new,
stuff.
weight management back then.
yeah,
Wow.
it was. I learned a lot about that. So that was cool, their program. And they went into lifestyle health at the Y and
A
did
little
that.
bit more part time for you to be
Yeah,
with
oh yeah.
family.
Yeah, it was more like under 20 hours.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, a week.
Okay.
But yeah, and I helped with some events there because as we all know, events, take time and became friends with, some of the new younger people there that I still have contact with. So that was fun. And then in 2018, that was only 3 years. A little itchy. But I Star Tribune story, and they talked about this University of Minnesota Advanced Careers Initiative. And I just said to my husband, I got to do this.
Yeah.
Like, it looks so cool. And it was a 2-semester program. It was a fellowship under a really wonderful professor called Phyllis Mohn, who is a pioneer on aging stuff. She, I think, taught probably into her 80s. And so I went down every week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and there were 15 of us in the cohort, and everybody was in their 50s and 60s.
So what was the program exactly?
Yeah.
University of Minnesota Advanced Careers Initiative, UMAC.
Okay,
Kind of like
so-
an Encore, figure out your Encore adulthood. That was a lot of the reading.
Like your second career. type
Yeah,
of thing.
yep. Or
Okay.
what are you going to do in this? And for a lot of them who had fully retired, it might have been volunteering. I remember somebody did, what's the stem cell? Not the, was a internship, a volunteer internship with
Like
the
be
donor.
Be the match or something?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes, exactly that. Another one who was younger, had come from Wisconsin, was a young widow, and she ended up, she's still full-time at the U of M. I mean,
Okay.
she kind of did some other stuff, but then she was a writer for journalist background, but then ended up landing a full-time job.
So it's kind of like an introspective of.
Oh, yes.
I love
and
that.
We got
Discover
to
your
meet,
passion.
Yeah.
Yep, and she brought speakers in, so it was really good for the brain. I mean, we just learned we also went in classes. So we were kind of like, you don't pay the tuition.
Sure.
There was a
Cost for the
significant
program,
cost for sure. But then we could sit in on these classes and hang out with these 20-somethings and have discussions and speakers. And we could pick it, in different colleges. So I did that for 2 semesters.
That's so cool. I didn't even realize that opportunities like that existed in our world. So that's incredible.
I think it lasted 3 years, and
Okay.
unfortunately, COVID just did a number on it. They just couldn't hold the class.
Yeah.
And then, college now, all colleges are really kind of reinventing themselves just because everything's changed so much.
Yeah.
So the program.
But you think that makes sense. Like,
Right.
college doesn't just need to be for younger adults. It can be for people who are kind of need to reassess what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I
there's
did
so many
have a
people that
couple.
are lifelong learners, right?
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. And that we were within the lifelong learning center
Okay.
inside the sociology department, I think
Okay.
it was.
Very cool.
I had a couple of people from St. Cloud State actually kind of talking to me about it because I think they were like, oh, should we do some up here about that?
Well, you
Yeah.
should go pitch it to them, and then you could lead it. If anyone's listening from St. Cloud State.
I like to, at this point, I'm just kind of not following along or side by side. Don't necessarily need to lead a lot, but
There you go. Okay, so what came after the fellowship? What
well,
did you-
then here we go. It's May, and in the meantime, right at the beginning of that, my dad did pass in 2018. So then I could feel comfortable taking those trips and being gone. My mom was good; she was in Cold Spring. But then, right at the end of that class, she had a significant medical situation out in Cold Spring and survived having blood clots in her lungs. Most people don't. So she made a choice to leave her house, and then she is still living about 5 minutes from me in a assisted living place. So, it's just crazy how all that worked out. And so we moved her and emptied a house in 2 months, and lo and behold, there's the opening at the YMCA and fundraising. I kid you not. I've been very blessed and fortunate. Things just sort of line
But you
up.
have your eyes open too. You got to take
I
a little
do.
bit of credit.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
do.
what did you learn in the fellowship that you had, like, you wanted to do? Was it the community giving hobby?
Yes, continuing to recognize, that the community service, and then the YMCA has always been a member for over 30 years. I love the mission. I love everything it does. So happy that there's a new one that was built 7 years ago, going to be a second one in St. Joe. It's just been really cool to watch that. And the other thing, when we talk about the itchy, because 40 years, man, in communications and marketing, oof, it's and so much changed.
Oh,
So I always kind of was like, could I do that fundraising thing? Because there's a lot of similar skills.
Right.
And actually, I had applied for a couple of things, was not hired, just kept marching on. And then the Y one opened. And then Greg did hire, and it was a bit of a risk. I was 57, 58, but we did well. And I was there for about 4 years and raised a lot of money. And I was told Greg, because as I could see what was going on with my mom, I needed to make some different choices.
Yeah.
I just said, God, put me here, Greg, to be your pandemic fundraiser.
Yeah.
I feel like that was my role in this organization, was to
Yeah,
for
you
that
were
2
there
3 years.
during
Oh yeah,
hot
I
and
remember
heavy.
because when we met, we Zoomed.
we did, and we got.
We're in my
Courtney
dining
on.
room. That's where I was.
Yeah, it was 2021 because
Yeah.
you guys have done your 5th one. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was smart. And I had to do the one promenade by Zoom
Virtual.
in 2020, the virtual one, and we had the party packs, the Coburn's
Good work, though. You did well.
promenade packs. Still raised, it's a little bit more, I think, than the year before. I couldn't believe it, but and now with your organization's involvements, it's really bumped up quite a bit the proceeds in the last 4 or 5 years. And you kept telling me that at the beginning. You got to make it. Make
Got
it
to
the
look
place
successful
to
to be successful.
Yes, I know, and she knew what she was talking about. But
Design
yeah.
matters, yeah.
But the other thing that was nice is Greg was very good. He knew that I needed to make a change. I was able to do it because I loved working. I just needed to work less. And so I did about 6 months. That was 16 hours a week, 16 to 20, and, was working with one replacement, and she didn't end up staying, and that's when Jenna was hired. And so I've actually continued to kind of meet with her, whenever she needs, or she calls, she knows she can text or whatever, and call and ask me questions. I'm
And
happy
you
to
still
help.
do a little freelance for them.
I do. So then here's the other thing that's kind of happened in the last year is some organizations still do annual reports, but paper annual reports just isn't too much. But the Y had never done one. And so I think Greg just decided a couple years ago, kind of when the campaign was ramping up, for this, he's like, hey, would you consider helping us with this? Because it is something that takes extra time.
Yes,
Yeah.
a lot of work.
Outside. So I've done that. Now I'm actually going to do the third one now. He did
Good.
ask if I'd do it again.
Important for nonprofits.
Yep,
too, and
yep.
important.
And,
I mean,
and
the Y
my-
was more than a full-time job.
Yes.
It was a lot of
It
responsibility.
was.
And
I was by myself. And that was hard for somebody, especially during the pandemic. As extroverted as
Yeah.
I was a one-person department, and I was new to it.
And you couldn't meet with people, really?
No, it was
Yeah.
all Zoom, all
Yeah,
Zoom. And
yeah.
Greg is wonderful fundraiser, but he had to figure out a way to keep a building open,
Yeah.
or reopened, and
Right.
I figured out a lot on my own, and he was very supportive.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was a great learning experience for you, but also I credit you for keeping your eyes open. I kind of done the full-time thing. I'm not, like, again, you're a perfectionist or whatever. I don't know that I can give it everything. I did it. It's time to move on.
Yep.
I don't know if I've ever known to move on.
Yeah.
I really don't move on. But anyway,
Usually for me, in like when
someone
I've
has to
left
tell
previous-
me to move on.
Well, that's not for me, but like it's like do or die, right?
yeah.
Like I didn't have the foresight to be like things are whatever here. Like it was like I gotta go and I gotta go now.
Yeah, right.
Well, you
So then
kind of you have to gauge yourself, and
I
but
mean-
I and I think I've complimented you on this because I read the stuff that you put on, and she puts it on LinkedIn, so the professional thing about motherhood and small children, and I'll look at you too, like, heck no, we were not talking
We
that
don't
way.
have children. Yeah,
you
no.
know, in fact.
We had to
So you were
dress
just telling me about
we had
a
to
story
pretend
about
we didn't
Diane,
have
yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
Oh no! I mean, it's like no, you're at work at
Yeah.
8:00, and there's a daycare thing. You just figure it out.
You load them up with Tylenol and hope they make it through the day.
So Great Theater had the 9 to 5 production here.
Oh, I went to that with my grandma. It was so good.
So I went with my daughter
Yes, I
on
saw
Saturday
that, yeah.
night, and she was she listened to me regaling all this stuff from the 80s.
Sure.
I'm like, we wore suits, pantyhose, high heels, those little frilly blouses, and big
Scarves.
hair. Yeah,
Yeah.
the scarves.
Shoulder pads.
Every single day.
Yeah.
And they had and we had a typewriter pool at the hospital. We had that, because we didn't have our own secretary. So we'd go down and,
Oh my
we have
gosh.
somebody helping out. And she didn't roll her eyes once at me, I don't think, that evening. But I was like, oh my God. I was not in a situation. We had mostly women in our department there that was experiencing, kind of the butt of the joke
Yeah.
at 9 to 5. I did not experience that kind
Right,
of stuff.
right,
But,
right.
They have no
Yeah.
idea how lucky they are.
that stuff
When it
gets
comes-
called out
yeah.
differently
Yeah.
now
Oh,
than it was. It was certainly
But
going
also,
on.
I think for me going through it, I'm not going to put that pressure on them. Like,
Yeah.
it's not their fault that the baby's sick. I'll take care of the
Yes.
baby.
Do you think every boss does that now?
I feel like because I am in that conversation a decent amount on LinkedIn, no, I don't feel like everywhere
special.
is experiencing that. Yeah, I
Is
do.
it?
But
How are women bosses though? Do you think they're different? I mean,
I
you're
think
probably,
they could go either way. I think
yeah,
they could
because
be,
they're like, well, I did it, so
Yeah.
buck up. 'Cause
Yeah.
I got that.
I get a little like that, but not
Yeah,
much.
I mean, the one boss I
Right?
worked for a couple of years at the hospital, she came up in the 60s and 70s, and it was like, just figure it out.
Yeah. I think what is happening is, and we really saw this like during the pandemic and stuff, is that, well, women are just leaving the workforce then and they're creating opportunities for themselves,
Yeah.
which, good, bad, or otherwise, if they don't have that support from their employer, that's the direction that they're taking.
Yeah. So what is that? What's the ecosystem of that with these small businesses or women, running
I
these?
mean, Taylor came her first day. It was during the pandemic, and she came, and I was the only one in the office because I used to come to the office. And I remember, here's everyone's numbers, here's everyone's email, because you have to
Yep,
start
yep.
coordinating virtually.
Yeah.
Yep.
And she got a call that her son was sick, and he was a baby. And she just looked at me, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I mean, so my point of view is more like, what are you working for anyway? We should be organized enough, because we're not like manning a store or running a machinery. Like, we're project based, right?
Yep.
So you go home today, we'll do it tomorrow. So my goal is always to try to plan ahead, because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow with your family or a client, right? So if we're not organized enough and don't have enough support, that someone can be sick, and we've been there.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, Michael's sick. Okay, maybe we need to hire somebody
Yeah.
if that's not enough support.
Well,
Now,
and
not-
I remember you went through, was it 2 years ago, like 2 maternity leaves,
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
back to
Mine
back.
and
Yeah, that
Brittany's.
was-
yeah.
Two maternity leaves, a business transition. It was
Yes.
a real smooth time.
Yeah, but not that people can hire a bunch of extra people, because
Yep,
we're
yep.
still a lean
Yeah.
machine here.
Yep.
But I don't know. I just feel like I try not to be ishy. I don't know if I give side eye or whatever. But I try not to. But the thing is once someone's sick, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Make them feel bad about
Yeah.
it? Like,
Well,
even the
I mean, it's a
baby.
baby or it's an employee. Everybody can get sick. One thing that I do want to
Yeah.
add to this conversation is saying, like, Diane, okay, you're keeping your eyes open. You're seeking out these opportunities. I do feel a little bit like, and I don't want this to come across like I was looking for an opportunity that I could take advantage of or something, but like, I don't want to work for myself. Like, I want a team. I don't want to be
Yep.
that woman
Yep.
that leaves the workforce because I need to be there for my family. But I needed to find a place that would accept that I have a family and
Flexible.
give me that
Yeah, you didn't
flexibility.
have-
And like,
'cause-
I sought that out. That was so important to me. And I
And
mean,
you were
I
a young
found
mother
it,
at
but
that time,
yeah,
you realized
yeah.
that. Because you manned a phone, didn't you? You had to be in the
Yeah,
office to answer
yeah.
a phone.
Yeah.
Like,
And
there's cell phones.
there was one, I don't want to say crotchety, but she was kind of crotchety, one crotchety old lady that if anybody, she was the person who was like, well, I had to do it,
Yeah.
so you
Yep,
guys should have
yep,
to do it. She
yep.
was very much that way. And 3 of us in the office all had young kids, and like one of us would be gone and we wouldn't hear the end of it from the lady. It's
So
like,
I
just couldn't
sh-
be in that environment anymore.
I should say that, I worked for Mark Thielen, and he did let me be somewhat flexible when it wasn't a thing because of the load that I took on. But it did cause problems in the office. I was the only one given that flexibility. And
Yep.
I also got paid differently, though. I got paid by commission. So I worked more, I got paid more. If I couldn't, I got paid less.
he must have recognized the potential there.
And so then I always worked like that. The way like Taylor works, like I got to leave early, so I'm going to work tonight. I always did that.
Yep.
And so for
Yep.
me, it was very natural to let other people do that.
But we also, though, we couldn't bring computers
Yeah,
home.
right.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
for
the
probably
landscape
the
is
first
so
10
different.
years.
We all have laptops now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But see that Centricare, we did not have
no,
that
no,
the first,
no.
So if you were off, you were off.
Yeah.
And cell phones were later, probably the second
Okay,
half of the career.
I remember
which
not-
is good and bad, but I'm okay because it's like, okay, I got an office at home. I can just do what I need to do.
I remember having a computer at home, but it was like a PC, and we worked on Mac.
Was it the little square baby Macs?
No,
That's
I
what
love
we
it.
had
Yeah,
at the
two-
hospital.
The 2E. Yeah, and you had to have a separate screen so you could actually see. We didn't have email. I'd walk in, and I'd have the pink messages
Yep.
in the turnstile when I walk in, and so-and-so called. We had a receptionist, and we'd have calls.
Or you
Crazy. I
had
can't even imagine that. But also,
the answering machine, which I come in on Monday morning and there's like 12 messages.
Yep, you got to listen.
You know.
Beep. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean, we're talking about, all the pros and how, like, that flexibility and the ability to take work home with you, to work when the kids go to bed, all of that, whatever. But sometimes I'm also like, gosh, darn it, I would just like to shut it off. Like,
Well,
and
you
that's
have-
also a me problem, not so much like a
Do you know what, though?
collective you problem.
I just read, and I think it was in the Skim this morning, that there is something afoot that is now becoming the cool thing for teenagers to turn off their phones.
I love that.
To be the cool person, and that flip phones are coming back.
Yeah.
Well, the author of The Anxious Generation,
Yeah.
that is actually one of his recommendations for
Sure.
teenagers is to only have flip
Flip
phones.
phones.
No smartphones till 16.
Why? Because you just can't see it when it's
No
closed.
smartphones until 16.
Oh.
Yep, that's one of his recommendations is for
Oh,
like 12
because
to
of social media and stuff, or the little
Yep,
computer.
Yeah,
the
I think
anxious
it's just- yeah, it's
generation.
just
Yep,
easy
yep,
to,
and
yeah,
no
become
phones in the
addicted.
classroom.
Yeah.
Which a lot of schools are doing that. So kind of switching it back. So the other big
school.
bonus thing for me is I now have 3 grandkids,
Yeah.
7, 4, and almost 2, the wild child. He's very fun though. I hope and pray that by the time the 7-year-old, 5 years from now when he hits that 12, 13, that there's some balance
Yeah.
with this. How do we use these tools? Keep the education, but then what's going to happen with AI,
Yeah.
But I just think it's really interesting. Like, are we starting
Yeah,
to
it's not
kind of
great for our
correct
health.
it?
We are
Yep.
as a
You're
I
in
have
the middle
I
of
have a
it.
5-year-old.
Yeah.
And my husband and I have conversations about this all the time, and what we're gonna do. And I think that parents in my kind of millennial generation, we saw what our parents did with maybe like younger siblings, and
Yep.
we're like, no. Hardcore, that's not
Yep.
happening. So that's at least how I feel. So I do think this like course correction is
Yeah.
happening.
My daughter had a YouTube channel at like 6, 7.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
so
I
you
put
did-
my
you
sister.
let her on. See,
I didn't let her. I had no idea what YouTube was.
Right.
Oh.
And someone said, "Where were you?" And I'm like, "I was probably at work."
But I think exactly like I think
But
that
she used
was
to talk about our American Girl dolls.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Oh,
was the
sure,
sweetest little
sure.
thing.
yeah.
She
I'd
had
say
a
Justin
YouTube.
Bieber's
That
son.
is very.
She's like, "Hi,
That's very
fans."
Moxie-like,
Yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it?
Oh,
For a
yeah.
6.
Funny.
Wow.
She only did a couple episodes.
yeah.
and
My
shut
daughter
that
didn't
down.
get a cell phone until she went to college.
Yeah.
And my son and I shared it until I started the job at St. Ben's. He was a 10th grader.
Oh, I've got a funny story. So my husband then, my ex-husband, decided to cut the cords, right? So cut the telephone
Cable?
in the house. We got rid of, whatever the phone line was
Yeah.
then. I don't even know what it was. Maybe it was Charter.
Oh, you mean the landline?
Yeah,
That's what it's called.
Okay.
No landline, but my kids were little, and
Yep.
they used to come home on the bus, and I would meet them at home. Like, I'd try to meet them off the bus.
Okay.
So that was like 2:30, 2:45. Like I said, I always had had my own business by then. One time I was late. They got stuck outside. The door was locked, or they couldn't find the key. Something happened. Or they were on the porch,
And you're-
cold, and I'm late. And I'm thinking they're in the house. They're fine.
Yep.
Something
You're
happened.
terrified. Oh, you weren't,
And
'cause
I'm
you
like,
thought they
that's
were.
it. You got rid of the phone, and all these kids are home with no phone, and whatever. And so I think it was like first year of my first agency, and I got them through our plan. I got them iPhone 3s.
Yeah.
And so my employees were always like, Ryan and Maya got iPhones before we did. They're like 7, 8, and they had these little iPhones.
Oh, wow.
But they didn't do
No,
much
I
then.
see. We did the like 20 minutes a month thing. That's
Yeah.
what we did
Yeah.
for the kid,
But I
because then
was-
if you called,
Yeah.
you got home safely, you're in the house, good. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
30 seconds.
But those plans like exist now. Like there's companies that are trying to create phones like that now for these,
Yep.
families
Well, the flip
that
phone,
have
you know,
seen,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
have seen,
yep, yep.
have seen
Yeah.
the damage. So it's just
Anyways,
interesting.
Back to the whole, like,
Yeah. What a man, I
tangent.
love this. This is why I love podcasting.
Back to the tangent of, now you're working all the time and not shutting it off. I mean, like it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
I sure don't expect you to be working all the time
Yeah.
either. I expect you to
I sure
do-
don't expect that either.
Yeah.
Sometimes it
But you
happens.
just
Well,
need to do
you're
it
not
when
productive. You gotta,
Yeah.
there's
No.
a point. I knew for me, like that 48, 50 hour, I hit over that and it's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
and I
a
don't
lot.
part of it is
I don't do that.
sleep.
I only
I just
schedule them 36 hours. So we're
No,
lucky if
I
we
mean,
make it to
yeah,
Our
30.
designers, and then we
30
get-
30 hours was
Yeah.
32. I'm like, that's awesome,
Yeah.
and Greg did do that for that year, and tried to do
Yeah,
that
we don't
job.
really follow hours. but-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
anyway, that is also expectations. I read a lot of articles about my boss calling me at 8 o'clock at night, and if I do, it's probably something fun. Everything is changing. People want a personal life, or
Yeah.
you're going to lose
Yep.
the employees.
When you got 3 little kids, like I'll text and say, mostly it's just like a reminder to my kids or whatever. Okay, get back to me when you can.
Yeah.
They're busy.
Yeah.
And we don't need to be first and foremost.
Yeah.
But then they expect us to answer, but that's okay.
You're like, I
thought
can't
it's
find
funny.
my
I
phone.
did get that call yesterday afternoon at about 4:15, 4:30. Mom, what are you doing? I have to get Nita to dance. Harrison wasn't ready on the playground. Can you run and get him? Sure.
So it doesn't end, huh? I
Yeah.
always have my phone on me in case my college kids need me. It was first high school, then
Yeah.
college, but I
Yep.
guess it never ends, huh?
But it was fine. And even John was like, oh, well, do you want me to go do it? I'm like, no, I want to go and see Nina dance. So I got to go and see the 4-year-old in her
Yeah.
little
That's a good
tutu
text.
thing.
Yeah.
Getting ready for her Christmas concert.
So now, Diane, how
Yes.
many hours? So you got your grandkids, you're still taking care of your mother. How many hours a week do you think you work?
Oh, it's more like a month, more like 15 to 20. It's not a
month,
lot.
okay, but enough
Yep.
to keep your mind going.
Correct.
Because I
It's- and
knew
it's
you
projects.
wouldn't retire.
Yeah,
I knew you wouldn't.
It's more, and just kind of finding it under myself. Get my feet under it. I just have to be super flexible for appointments with her, and like stuff changed twice this week with things with my mom. So
okay. So now, would you share your age with us?
yes, I will be 64 in December.
Oh my God, you look.
So I was,
awesome.
I did, kind of bailing at 62 from full time, a little
Okay.
on the young end. Most of our friends, go 64, 65. My husband is older than me, so he actually worked longer full time than I did, but now he's,
But you have the other job of grandma and caretaker for your mom. So
yeah, kind of
it's
in the
not
middle.
like you're just sitting
a
around
later
eating
sandwich
bonbons.
person. Yep, a later sandwich. But yeah, so the projects that I can control, and like, for example, that Y annual report, Greg gave it, basically I have 6 months to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
You
so
know,
the
and so-
flexibility, yeah. But it still keeps your mind active, right? And you
Yep.
still feel like
Yep.
I always feel like that too. Like I still want to work with clients because I don't want to be so out of date. I don't want to get out of date.
Well, and I could, the things that I work with are things that are personally passionate to my husband and I. We're
Yeah.
very involved in our grandkids are at the Catholic schools. He coaches soccer, at Cathedral. And so it's organizations that matter to us.
Yeah.
And so for me to be
Makes
able
it-
to freelance for them, hallelujah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
because you
know?
could do it for free, and now you're getting a little money.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, so I'm blessed, but yes, I do.
But you made it happen.
God helps those who help themselves.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like
Because I
that.
remember when you were going to step away from the Y, and I'm like, no, don't. but I was happy for you. Not
Yep.
happy for me.
Well, and I'm so glad that you've continued. There was a transition there, but the themes every year are fun, and I won the
Yeah,
the big
you're
raffle
the big
this
winner
year.
this
I was
year.
like, what? I never win anything. So that
God
was
helps
fun.
those who help themselves.
Well, yeah, it was.
And I sold her that raffle ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. You were like, dang it, I could have had that. But
I only bought like 3 books and I didn't win.
so no, I'm like, okay, I'll buy it at the front desk, or I'll buy it from one of you guys. You tell
Yeah.
me. So anyway, but yeah,
Well, thanks for your
that's-
continued support with that.
that will always be there. That has a big place in both my husband John and my heart. Both of those organizations.
Wonderful. Well, do you have any other final
I think we should
words?
probably wrap it up, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
We have
I
some other
think
ones to
so.
do, and
Yeah.
she's
I
gotta
know.
take her-
I know. I'm the first one. I don't need to be. And plus, I'm actually heading over to my mom's for
Yeah.
lunch.
Yes, we need to get you going.
Yeah,
Yes.
so nice. Well, thank you so much
Yep.
for sitting down with us and chatting with us today about life and career paths and
Encore
taking,
adulthood.
Yes,
Yep,
yes.
yep.
It was.
It's
it
a
was
great-
all,
Being itchy.
all so great.
scratching
Yeah,
the itch.
being
Itchy,
itchy.
yep.
All I could think was, I'm approaching 5 years, Kelly. Oh.
You
No.
better scratch that itch. I'll scratch it.
You can
Yeah,
scratch
she'll
it
figure
for
out
me.
anyway.
something for you
She's
to
my
do. And you
success-
don't need not everybody. So
I'll
our
just give you
friends-
more responsibilities.
Yeah.
you'll
Yeah,
That's
I would say
great.
she'll
Perfect.
do something, but no. So like our friends who we went on the cruise with, both had been at their employers for like 40 years.
Yeah.
That is not my husband and I.
Yeah.
My husband was a software developer, got laid off. I
Yeah.
mean, that's just part of that
Industry,
field.
sure.
Yeah. So lots of jobs.
Well, Taylor's my succession plan, so she's not going
I
anywhere.
No, I'm
wasn't going
good.
to say that on the. You can cut that out, but yeah.
Well, I want to put it on the record.
Okay.
Well, thank you,
okay.
Diane. This
Yep.
was so
Then
much
thank
fun.
You. This was fun. So how does this work after? Like, what happens or where does it go?
It goes on the interwebs.
I know, but in what time frame? You schedule everything out, I'm sure.
You're
Next-
next week.
next m- yeah.
next week already.
Oh boy.
Yep. Next week.
Awesome.
Well, we will see you
Oh.
next week on the next episode of Behind the Brand.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Behind the Brand. If you liked this episode, share it with a friend. If you didn't, share it with an enemy. To keep up with us, follow along on our socials. Links are in the show notes below.